Hello, everyone. It's a beautiful, beautiful Saturday here in Houston. This is our chat with Mac. We are glad to have you. For those of you that faithfully look at our little show here, we really appreciate you and we appreciate your feedback. Please keep sending more questions. I need to mention that. If you have questions, please send them. We would like to get those answered. And for those of you that are new to what we do, welcome, welcome, welcome. Nadeem, how's it going, sir?
Oh, it's going great. I was this morning I had a little issue, so I'm at the house and I was going to get new internet, upgrade my internet to fiber,
Right.
and well, they came out, they tried, they were trying to figure out how they're going to get the line to where I keep the modem, and they ran it through where the existing line was coming in, and that didn't work out very well. So then they ran a whole new line from the street, and then of course now they're going to have to come back out to bury it. However, I did get over a gig speed on fiber.
Nice.
But very quickly I realized I have a problem, and the problem is all of my devices are, well, most of my devices are on Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi 802.11 AC standard theoretically can go up to 1300 Mbps, which is still not the speed I'm getting on the internet side. It's still less than that. However, in practice, usually 802.11 AC maxes out at around 630 to 670 Mbps. So that's a bummer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, first world problems, of course. My internet is faster and my Wi-Fi can't keep up. And until the new standard comes out for Wi-Fi, if I'm going to use Wi-Fi, I'm going to be stuck with less than 1 Gbps speeds. Now, the modem that AT&T gives you, it does have a special 10G port on there. It's just one 10G port. Now, that 10G port will go up to over 2 Gbps speed. So I did verify that I was getting the speed that AT&T promised I would be getting, but not on my wireless devices, which is fine because at the end of the day, I have multiple Wi-Fi devices. So if each one of them is around 600 Mbps, I'm fine. I mean, overall, it's still going to be around 2.5 Gbps. But it would have been nice to have, like, if all the other devices are shut off, it would have been nice to have close to 2 Gbps speed. But it is what it is.
I'm slightly confused, and here's why. I would think that people or the manufacturers that manage these devices would see that this could be a potential issue, especially since speeds are increasing on a exponential note. So I'm kind of shocked that is indeed a problem that these manufacturers haven't thought of and said, hey, you know what, this is going to be a problem. How do we update, or what do we do to solve that? That's interesting to me.
Yeah. So, and they tell you this, like the guy who installed this new modem for me, he showed me on the back of the modem, there is one port that is color different. And he was like, hey, if you have a device that can go more than 1 Gbps, this is the port you want to use. And I was like, oh, it only has one 10G port. Well, that's fine. I mean, how many 10G devices are you going to need on a network anyway in a house, right? But now the problem is that the Wi-Fi standard going all the way up to 802.11 AC hasn't kept up with the speeds, the internet speeds that these guys are giving you over fiber. Now, keep in mind, that's, one is wireless. The other one is not only a physical connection, but a fiber physical connection. I mean, it's not electrons moving through the wire, it's light moving through the wire. Yeah. What can be faster than light, right? Right. So that's the issue we're running into now, is that the Wi-Fi standard now needs to be updated to where we can get maybe close to, we're never going to get what we get over a fiber connection. We're never going to get those speeds on wireless. It's just not going to happen. But maybe we can get closer to that. Right now, I'm getting less than half of the speed over Wi-Fi that I'm getting at the modem. So yeah, but I could plug it in. I mean, I left one of the cables plugged in to the modem. So if I have a device and I need higher speeds, maybe downloading something big, I'll just plug in that cable and go 10G.
So you would be able to plug directly in and not have an issue, is what I'm hearing.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It's only over Wi-Fi that's the issue.
That's interesting.
But the thing is that most devices are going to be Wi-Fi, right? I mean, your media devices, your Apple TVs, your Roku's, your smart TVs, all of those are going to be Wi-Fi. I mean, really, what we need is a better, faster, with more bandwidth Wi-Fi standard. That's really what we need.
So can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so back in the day, around 1999, we started off with 802.11a standard, right? This is the IEEE standard. So the 802.11a, it runs over 5 gigahertz, but the max data rate on that is 54 Mbps. 54 Mbps, not even 100. I mean, 54. So then came the 802.11b standard, which ran over the 2.4 gigahertz frequency. That went to 11 Mbps. But the reason why the 802.11b was there is, and it came around the same time frame as the 802.11a. But the thing was, the range was supposed to be better with 802.11b. And then, of course, the 802.11g came out in around 2003, which was 2.4 gigahertz as well, but it went up to 54 Mbps, 125 feet, typical indoor range, right?
Right.
Which was more than 100. And then 802.11n came out in 2009, which was both a 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, and the max data rate on that was 600 Mbps. Whoa, things are great. And it was 225 feet, so more than 125. So, we are making progress here. And then finally in 2014, the 802.11ac standard came out, 5 gigahertz, max data rate of 1 Gbps, but the typical indoor range was 90 feet. The range went down. The reason the range went down is because this is running only over 5 gigahertz. Now, of course, the higher the frequency, the harder time it has going through objects. So 802.11c has a.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, 802.11c has a longer range if it's outdoors, if there's no obstacles. It has about 1,000 feet, but indoors where it has to go through walls and stuff, it's only 90 feet. So that's 1 Gbps, and that's under ideal conditions. These speeds that I'm giving you, these are under ideal conditions. We never have ideal conditions. It's not an ideal world, right?
That's true.
So that's the theoretical ideal scenario. It would get that good. So looking at my actual measured speed in my house, we're going through like maybe 2-3 walls. Well, one of them is a masonry wall, but anyway, so theoretically I should be getting a Gbps at my devices because I'm on 802.11ac standard, but I am only getting around 630 Mbps. And that makes sense because it's not an ideal situation. I've got doors, I've got walls, I've got, stuff, I've got interference from maybe my neighbors and stuff. I can see a couple other access points around. So it's an interesting problem to have. Now I'm at a point where it has never been the case where my local speed was less than my internet speed. I have never in my life encountered this type of situation. So this is a first in my life when my internet speed is actually faster than my local speed. Now, of course, I can go and plug it into the hardwire cable and get the full speed, but that defeats the purpose of my machines are all scattered around. Right. But it's it just occurred to me today that first time in my life I have faster internet and slower devices. It's never happened to me before.
But so you mentioned something about the signal having a problem going through walls. Is there a fix for that? So, and here's the reason I ask. I don't know how it is with offices. I know back in the day, offices had what was it, T3? I think. Was it T3? I think those were the speeds or whatever. I mean, those are real back in the
Oh yeah,
days.
yeah, you're talking about the T1 and T3.
T1, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Now, when you mention that, is there? I mean, with this new internet, this new service? I mean, is there a way to amplify where it would be able to go through walls? And for example, if you have a huge house with that type of speed, I would imagine it would be hard to get decent speeds in different parts of the house.
Well, so you can do a few things. The first is you're not going to get beyond that 1 Gbps max ideal data rate, right? That's 1 Gbps on 802.11 AC. But you can do a few tricks. And the tricks are that you have multiple access points, both on the transmitter side and on the receiver side. And then you multiplex them together. So it's almost like having multiple radios, multiple connections bundled together. And then that gives you one big pipe. So you get more bandwidth. But who's going to do that? Nobody wants to.
I was going to ask, like, good Lord.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So theoretically, it can be done. I mean, I can stick a few devices on my machine here, and I can get a few extra access points and have a one-to-one connection on them and pass that data through and get higher speeds. But that will be like a prototype situation. It wouldn't be like normal routine life situation, right?
Sure.
And that's the thing. I think we're ready for a new standard. I mean, the last 802.11 AC standard came out in 2014, so I think we are ready. And there is another standard. I don't recall the name off my head. AX, yes. So the AX standard is on the books, so it's going to happen pretty soon. So if the AX standard happens, that was the year it was released was in 2019, the 802.11 AX, and that is supposed to get us to 10 to 12 Gbps maximum speeds. Again, theoretical, but now if we had that, then great. But there's not a lot of devices that support 802.11 AX standard, especially not on PC side of things. Like machines.
So machines would have to. I imagine the older machines wouldn't be able to do anything to get up to spec, but then the next gen, would be okay. Okay.
Yeah, and if you had an older machine, what you would have to do is you would have to get like a external adapter, like either USB or FireWire or something like that, where it will plug into the machine and give you 802.11 AX standard connectivity. Now, of course, the machine has to have a connection that is fast enough. So maybe USB-C or FireWire or something like that. Regular USB 3.0, I don't think is going to keep up with their 10 to 12 Gbps speeds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I got a question that came up. Who determines, this may be on the mind of many of our listening audience, who determines, like, hey, we need to increase the standard? Is this a conglomerate or a group of?
It's an organization. It's IEEE. It's an organization. However, it is not based on. The problem is not that we want more speed. Who doesn't want more speed? Everybody wants more speed. The problem is technology there to get us to that speed? And that's been the problem. So on the wireless side of things, it's not that people just don't want speed, so they're just sitting around doing nothing. No, that's not the case. The problem is that those chips that support the 802.11 AX or 802.11 AC standard have to be invented. They have to exist first to be able to get to those speeds. Okay. So the problem is the technological issue. Everybody wants more speed, and who wouldn't want 5 Gbps speed? But the problem is that the technology is just not there, and the technology has to be there and at a good price point. That's the other thing. I mean, you can have like multiple radios and you can bond channels together and do all this fancy stuff, but at what cost? That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's interesting is I am seeing a lot more switches that are coming up with like 2.5 and 5 Gbps speeds. So before, we used to have, there was 10 Mbps, then 100 Mbps switches, then there were 1 Gbps switches, and then after that 1 Gbps switch, we had 10G switches, right? That was a big jump, and those 10G switches were enterprise data center type switches. Those are high-end switches, very costly switches. But now I'm seeing more and more companies are releasing residential switches that are multi-Gbps speed, so 2.5, 5 gigahertz. And I'm thinking these are companies that are keeping in mind, hey, internet speeds are increasing, so let's bring something in at a lower price point. And companies like Netgear, TrendNet, and these companies who make not very good devices are pushing out these devices into the stream. Yeah, they work at 2.5 theoretical Gbps speeds, but I don't trust those type of devices. I would wait for some better known company to come up with those switches. And the reason for that is problem with Netgears, TrendNets, and all these consumer grade devices is that they may work for a while and that's great, but they have a tendency to break at the most inopportune time.
Right.
And that's been my experience. I mean, when you're working against deadlines, you need to get things done, and that's when it breaks. And maybe it's because you're pushing them so hard at that point, but that's been my experience. And a lot of our customers, that's what we've encountered is when they're working against deadlines, that's when such stuff fails. And that's why one of the things in our standard is that we stay away from consumer grade devices in business space. So yeah, for your house, for your home, if you're streaming a movie, it's fine. It's not important. Well, I guess it is, but not as important as getting work done when multiple users are relying on that connectivity.
And it's funny how I think we kind of talked about this a while back. Those shortcut fixes that businesses try. We get it. You're trying to save a buck, you're trying to save $1, or whatever the case may be. But my goodness, man, trying to buy these consumer grade appliances for enterprise grade infrastructures is such a huge mistake, and the dean sees it over and over again. Like we won't I won't name customers, but I know customers that we've had that they went and decided they want to do something on their own, and then all of a sudden it's like, help, the dean, help.
Yeah, it happens more often than you would think, and a lot of times, just the other day, I had a call from somebody. So a friend had referred one of their customers over to us and it was a law firm. They were growing so fast, and so the guy said, hey man, I'm having a problem with my switches. My network is broken, and a few people have tried to fix it. Blah blah blah. And I asked him, hey, what kind of equipment do you have? And he couldn't name the names. But then found out they were these consumer grade devices, and I was like, first thing is you want to have a device that you can rely on. And that's why we recommend devices that for example, going with HPE Aruba devices. The reason I recommend HPE Aruba is because they come with a lifetime warranty, right? That lifetime warranty is there for a reason, and they will even do advanced replacement. So if you can show them that in your switch you have 1 or 2 ports failing, or you have a high packet loss, and you can show them that, they will send you a switch in advance before it actually fails. However, I have yet to see an HPE switch fail. I haven't seen. I mean, I've been working with their equipment for over 20 years now, and I haven't seen a HPE switch fail. Now, I've seen a lot of Cisco switches fail. Now, Cisco is enterprise grade. However, with Cisco, the devices only come with mostly 1-year warranties. Some of them come with 3-year warranties. And then to extend that warranty, you have to buy something called SmartNet. And that's an annual fee you have to pay Cisco. And that's why back in the day, Cisco made a huge amount of money, was because of the SmartNet. The hardware, they could have given it out for free. It was the SmartNet that they were making money on. But on the other hand, HPE wasn't making as much money on their network switches as Cisco was, but they had a much more reliable device, and they had a good following of partners like us, where because we want to put a switch in place and then we don't want to touch it again.
Right.
I mean, that switch should run all the time. We want to monitor it, we want to do all that, but we don't like touching stuff again over and over. Yeah, it makes us money, but the problem is it's downtime, it's headache. I'd rather spend our resources doing R&D and finding new stuff and finding new ways of doing things, as opposed to just going out and cleaning out. It's like dredging a river. You keep doing it over and over, and it keeps building silt again.
Right.
You don't want to do that.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting.
So yeah, I've been busy today with my fiber, and I was talking with the guy, and I feel for him. I mean, I feel for all the guys who go out and install internet connections at residences. I mean, that's a tough job. I mean, you got to think on the fly. Every house is different. You got to figure out how you're going to get the line in. I mean, sometimes the junction box is upstairs. You got to bring it in, and how you're going to run it across, and you have to at the same time follow standards. You can't do substandard stuff, because an inspector is going to come and check it out, and they're going to be like, "Who installed this?"
Right.
So there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind, and then on top of all of that, you got to get it done as well, right? I mean, you can't say, "Oh, I can't do it." I mean, you got to get it done.
It's got to be done.
So this guy, he came out. They don't usually work on weekends, but he came out yesterday because the actual install was supposed to be yesterday. That didn't happen. But he came out yesterday and he said, "Hey, I'm going to come out in the morning at 8 o'clock. I'm going to get you going. It might take me a few hours, but I'm going to get you going." And he did. It took him, I think, 3 or 4 hours, but he got it done.
Wow, good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, first he installed it where the existing connection was coming in, and then he tested it at the modem, and he was getting like half the speed, and he was like, "Nope." He said, "Back to the drawing board."
Wow.
I felt so bad for him. But we did I had talked to him beforehand, and I told him, hey, another way is you can get fiber through the back. You can get, drill a hole, come through the wall, and come around the back. But he didn't want to, drill any holes. So he was like, well, let's do the easy way first, and if that doesn't work, this will be the fallback plan. So the fallback worked, and I'm up and active on the new internet. The only thing that's left is for the subcontractor to come out and bury the cables and stuff like that, which is that's not a big deal for me. But yeah, it was interesting, and I mean, technology is changing so much. I looked at his cable, and usually it's that thick cable that comes in for the copper. This is like thin cable, and I was like, man, do you think that has enough shielding to stand the weather? And he was like, oh man, this is more reliable than that thick copper cable that we used to install.
But now, and correct me if I'm wrong. Is it fiber going to coax copper, or I think it's been years?
Yeah.
No.
So this is actually fiber coming into the modem here, into the house.
Really?
Yeah. So this is fiber to my CPE, or my customer premise equipment, and I can go and unplug the fiber from my modem right now to get me disconnected. It's coming right there. So this is just perfect. Now all I need is fiber from all my devices back to the modem.
Back to the modem, right, to get the optimum. Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, that's it's one of those things where I think a lot of in a lot of places, light is replacing electrons. I mean, I think even there's even some cars that have optical network within the car itself, as opposed to wire?
I think I'm a little bit of a quote unquote car whore. I love cars, so so I think if I'm not mistaken, Mercedes Benz or is it BMW? One of them has started optical connections as opposed to wired. I'm gonna have to look that up, but
Yeah.
yeah, to your point, yeah, that's happening.
Yeah, I think back in the day, I want to say Infinity had it in one of their models. I
I
think the Q
love
series.
Infinities. Oh
Back in
my
the day, they had it. But the thing is, yeah, I mean, if you want speed and bandwidth, you can't compare with light.
So do you think that's going to be, I mean, it's here, but do you think that's going to be, there's going to be other applications for light or fiber, yeah, fiber, that whole thing as opposed to more wired connections? Is that going to be the standard, the gold standard now as opposed to, you know,
Well, it is already the gold standard as far as long distance communication goes, right?
okay, it's
And
true.
that's why when people say fiber internet, they all automatically think fast because there is nothing faster than light. So
Right.
if something needs to travel from here back to the the internet provider's main office, if it's electrons, they're going to take some time getting there. But if it's light, man, it's instantaneous,
It's,
right?
yeah.
And that's why we see very low lag times when you're on fiber as opposed to when you're on copper.
Yeah.
I mean, we see like huge difference in lag times. Like I mean, in my case, it was I used to get like 40 to 50 milliseconds going to Google, and once we switched on to fiber, it was like 4 or 5 milliseconds going to Google. I mean, 4 to 5 milliseconds versus 50 some odd milliseconds. That's a huge difference, many times. So, and that's why fiber is so much better when you're talking about voice connectivity. So, if you're using voice over IP, if you have fiber, you're going to have that much better quality.
So interesting, and this might have to be a next topic because I am reading about voice over 5G now as a thing as opposed to voice over IP. They're looking to do it over 5G. And I mean, that's something I want to explore. We've talked about in the past all the applications that 5G connectivity is going to have, and it looks like it's branching out a lot further than just the phones. And I use 5G, even though every once in a while it just dies on me. But but yeah, it looks like that's starting to happen. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
we'll make another topic out of that. However, I think the way the world is moving is everything is going to be IP enabled. And it won't matter what substrate that travels on. So whether you have IP over fiber or over 5G or copper, it doesn't matter. Once it's IP, you have a lot more flexibility. So I
Gotcha.
think once we get to voice or video over IP, that's it. Stop there, because the underlying protocol, it doesn't matter, or the underlying substrate, it doesn't matter. Once it's IP, it's very flexible. You can put it on any medium. Like back in the day, we used to have token ring networks, and then there was another standard. The Army actually was working on this standard. I forget the name. It's been quite a while, but that signaling, you can actually use barbed wire and run that signal over barbed wire and have data communications going back and forth.
Wow.
I mean, it wasn't a lot of bandwidth, but you can communicate over barbed wire. So that's the thing. Once you get IP enabled, then the underlying substrate really doesn't matter. It could be satellite communications, 5G, copper, fiber, whatever it is. Um, but IP is IP, right? And that's
Yep.
where the world is moving to. All the phones are getting switched over to IP. Video is all over IP,
Yep.
and that's where. And we'll talk about it in another video. But I think we've taken quite a bit of time here. I didn't think we can talk for 30 minutes over just speeds and stuff, but I guess we can. So Mac, have a great weekend. Enjoy it, and we'll see everybody next week.
See you guys.
Have a good one, guys.